The world's on fire. Our river's gone dry. The rich are getting richer. They've left us out here to die. Mass migration. We got no place to hide. Who's against us? Who's on our side? Are they too dumb or are they just in on it? Liars and cheaters, a red-hot grip. Ditch the gaslighting gas bag that speaks in code. He's a faker, a shaker, a pontificating pantload. In this house of mirrors, we've hit the wall before it's too late. Let's go. Come on, y'all. It's border to border and coast to coast. It's real, it's facts, and it ain't no hoax. It's Podcast by George, and it's showtime, folks. Well, hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another Podcast by George. Well, that intro's a little corny. It's wearing a little thin, but, I still like it, and it's still pertinent, and we're going to be talking about many of those same issues today on the Podcast by George LiveLine today, because we've got a returnee, and, man, I've been waiting all day for this. We started out bright and early. Some people caught it. We had Ed Ryan on. I had him in the studio, actually, down at Beach Talk Radio in Fort Myers, Florida, to talk about the devastation down there. He was using a hotspot on his phone to be able to do the upload for the video and was working okay in the studio. And then when we went live, it just went kaput. And I guess that part of Florida lost all of its cell service. And we're going to circle back. We're going to try to get Ed on later. I apologize for that one. I, babbled for 7 minutes or so and then logged off eventually. But we will get Ed Ryan back on with Beach Talk Radio down in Fort Myers. But today, folks, I've been waiting ever since we were down in Fort Myers. I've been waiting for this one because coming on the Podcast by George LiveLine again, and I'm delighted about it. It's our guest today, Misty Winston. She's the host of Cognitive Dissonance on TNT Radio and co-host of Action for Assange on YouTube. You can catch those folks there. I do all the time. It's great. Misty Winston is an activist, a truth teller, a truth seeker, whose work has been focused on press freedom, free speech, and anti-imperialism. As I mentioned, she's a returnee. She's been on a couple of 3 times now, and I'm just tickled to have her on. Let's click a button here, and let's see. I got to add this to the stream and bring this in, and she should come in, and there she is.
There I
am. Misty.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Well, the last time you were on, you had just decided to take on this huge responsibility of organizing this rally, out in Washington, D.C., and you had a little, I could tell, fear and trepidation about putting this thing together, but holy buckets, I mean, it has gone great. You've got a lineup of speakers to die for.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this up on screen, and then I kind of just want you to talk us through this a little bit. Tell us, there's one of the graphics. And here are the speakers, but tell us how you got these folks and maybe pick a few of them out. Tell us who's coming.
Oh, boy. And you're right. So every time I organize something, I always get freaked out and I'm convinced that I'm going to screw it up and nobody's going to show up and it's going to be terrible. And I don't know why I'm doing this. And I still have that today. Like, I'm still panicking. It's going to be awful. Like, it's going to be the worst. It's going to rain. It's going to, something's going to happen. That's terrible. That's just my negative personality, I guess.
Oh, no.
But I took it on. I was kind of on my own for a few weeks trying to put things together. Not really on my own, but I had a couple of my, regular organizing buddies that we were collaborating and trying to brainstorm and all of that stuff. And we now have an amazing organizing crew. I'm not even going to attempt to name them all because I'll forget people and then I'll feel terrible. But both of the New York groups, Assange groups, are helping. The newly formed DC Assange group is helping. My friend Paula from Boston is helping. There's a lot of people now that have jumped on board and are really putting in a lot of work to make this happen. So it's certainly not just me that's turning this event into such a success, because as you mentioned, our speaker list is insane. As you can see there on screen, we have people like Chris Hedges, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and an amazing speaker. I'm really excited to see him speak live. Dan Cohen, who's a friend of mine, an independent journalist. He has a new documentary coming out about Haiti. So everybody stay tuned for that. Dave DeCamp is also another amazing independent journalist from antiwar.com. Eliza Blue is one of my favorite people on earth. She's a human trafficking survivor and an advocate for other survivors now. And she is just fantastic. And I'm so excited to have her there. We have Garland Nixon. We have Jill Stein, Joe
Yeah,
Loria, who's the editor-in-chief of Consortium News, which is an amazing
sure.
independent outlet. If you're not following and supporting their work, please do so. Obviously, John Kiriakou, hello.
Yeah,
An
big name.
amazing guy, whistleblower, great speaker. Kevin Gostola, who is probably the premier journalist on all things Assange. He's
I've
been
had him
following
on
the
my show
case.
several times. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
great.
he
Yeah.
is. He is. He's fantastic. He does great work, and he's been on this case since day one. So there really is nobody better in terms of journalism on this case. Reverend Annie Chambers, who's a Black
Yeah,
Panther,
back in the
lifelong.
day, boy. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, she literally came out of the womb and was
she's
right to
lived
the
it.
streets. You know what I mean? Like she's just an amazing human. My dear friend Randy Credico, who's a radio host, lifelong activist. He's hosts Countdown to Freedom, which is an Assange-centric show that he has had. You know, anybody that is involved in this case. Our girl Sabby Sabs is going to
I've
be
had her
there.
on. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing. And then obviously Steven Donziger is another great get. So yeah, I mean, I keep looking at the speaker list and I'm like, I can't believe this is our speaker list.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks would be familiar with probably most of the names on this list. Now, and most of these people are left, but they're not all. I see a libertarian here,
Yeah.
at least one or two. Tell people about Steven Donziger now. A lot of people may not be familiar with his story. I find that hard to believe, but I encounter people all the time and try to explain what happened to that dude. It's kind of hard to encapsulate it, but he was persecuted and imprisoned against his will. And, there are some similarities between his case and what happened to Julian Assange. Tell us about Steven Donziger.
Yeah, there's certainly some similarities. Obviously, very different circumstances in terms of Donziger being a lawyer who was representing, people against Chevron, and Julian Assange being a journalist and publisher who's being persecuted for telling the truth. But the kind of treatment that they received is very similar. Steven Donziger was held under house arrest for ages upon ages, treated incredibly poorly. They would wake him up in the middle of the night to make sure he was home, and it was just really just lawfare. I mean, that's essentially what it is. But he took on Chevron.
He won.
And he won.
Big.
Yeah.
And they retaliated against that guy.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
And they basically bought the judge and the legal process, as most corporations do, and he really was up against it. So he's a very impressive person. I'm so glad that he has become vocal on this subject. There was a time where we were trying to get him to speak, and I wasn't sure if he would or not because of the things he was dealing with. And it's always risky to kind of take a stand on an issue like Assange. So I'm super pleased that he has done that and that he's agreed to speak at our event. And actually, that was Randy Credico was able to get him as a speaker for us.
Randy.
So shout out to Randy for that. Yeah.
And Randy's got something to do with the truck, right? I mean,
Yes. Randy Credico. First of all, I love him. He's an amazing human being, just period. He makes me laugh. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's a comedian. Yeah.
He's a comedian. He's a radio host, lifelong activist. He's just really just highly entertaining and just so much fun. And he is just an absolute workhorse when it comes to his activism. And every time we go to DC, we work with the DC billboards, mobile billboards crew, James, and it's a billboard truck. So it's a truck with billboards on all the sides of it and everything. And Randy has been down there for, I think he's entering into his 9th week in DC, and they have been driving around the streets of DC, trying to get the word out. Over the past couple of weeks, he started handing out flyers, both just informational flyers and also flyers to promote the event that we're holding. And so he's been down there for, I think, going into his 9th week. And there for a while, he was trying to just fundraise it on his own. He was also, I know, paying out of pocket. He won't tell you that, but I will. But recently, Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's, who's also a speaker on our list there, he has decided to match all donations. So if you go to AssangeCountdownToFreedom.com, there's a donate link there. You can donate to that, and Ben Cohen will match any donations. They want to try to keep the billboard truck on the streets through the election. So that's a really amazing effort, and Randy is just a phenomenal dude for doing it.
Well, that's great. I want to go through some of these graphics now because I have pulled these things here. Let's take a look at this one now. Again, this has the lineup. It's 12 to 3 p.m. You changed the time on that. I remember you were changing it last time we talked. Yeah. And it was to accommodate John Kiriakou mostly,
Which it
right?
turns out we didn't even need to do that.
Oh,
When
okay.
when I approached him, he just for whatever reason thought it was a weekday. He hosts a radio show it goes until 2 o'clock, and he said, "Well, I have a radio show. I can't get there till 2:20." I wasn't thinking of it. He didn't think of it that it's a Saturday, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But I'm really, really, really glad that we changed it because now we have a ton of speakers. We have a packed schedule. So yeah, I mean, we initially had changed it so that he was able to attend. It turns out we didn't need to, but it's a really good thing that we did.
And then it isn't limited just to Washington, D.C. Now, as you mentioned, you've got all these different tribes, and this thing is really coming together. I mean, God, it is really heartwarming almost to see how everybody is pulling together on the rope here for October 8th around the world. They're going to surround Parliament, as I understand it. I think I
Yes.
saw something in Denver that was going to happen
Yeah.
as well. So you can talk to that.
Yeah, so this is how it usually goes in the Assange community. Somebody will say, "Hey, I'm going to do an event on this day," and then like in this circumstance, it was the London crew. They decided they were going to do their surround Parliament, which is an amazing thing that they're doing, a historic event that's going to be happening. And the London crew are some of the best activists out there. They are so passionate and so consistent and just really amazing people on top of it. But yeah, they decided they were going to do this around Parliament event, and then it kind of snowballed. Australia decided they would do something. Then, my friend Alex was like, "Is anybody going to do DC?" And that's when as I mentioned on your show last time, that's when I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll do it. I'll do it." So yeah, and now there's in Denver, my dear friend Kendra in Denver is hosting an event there as well. And my friend Kyle Anslone is one of their feature speakers. He is an amazing foreign policy journalist for antiwar.com and the Libertarian Institute. And so that's going to be a great event. And there's events cropping up all over the world. And the best place, if you want to find an event near you, if you can't make it to DC, and you want to see if there's something that's a little bit closer to your neck of the woods, if you go to the Twitter account Candles for Assange, it's the number 4, Candles for Assange. My friend Alex Hills runs that Twitter page, and she does an amazing job of kind of collecting all of the global events and tweeting them out from one spot. So she has a running thread going there now where you can see all of the events that are taking place. If there isn't an event near you, you can be an event near you. All you need is a poster board, a Sharpie, and a sidewalk, as I always say. So yeah, I mean, it's really kind of grown. This is how it always happens in the Assange community. It's amazing. We all really kind of stick together, work together, even though we're so far apart. There's oceans between us, but we all kind of are able to come together collectively when it counts.
I'll talk about this very briefly. I've just pulled this off your Twitter feed. This takes money. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's getting rich off of this, but it does take money. So if people want to, if they can't make the trip, if they can't be there, myself included, I threw a little money in the hat, to try to help this along. Tell people how they can do that.
Yeah, we have a GoFundMe. You can find that on my Twitter, as you can see on screen there. It's at Sarcasm Stardust. You're right; it's not cheap. Freeing Assange is not free. There's a lot of people who I think who are not really have never really been involved in activism or in organizing. I don't think that they realize just how expensive it is, but getting flyers printed is hundreds of dollars. I just bought almost $200 worth of button supplies. Getting to the event, I have to drive 6.5 hours. The people in Boston, I think it's like 10 hours for them. We all have to get hotel rooms or Airbnbs and all of that stuff. And we need supplies, and we need to rent a sound system. And there's all of these things that go into it that really add up quickly. And I realize that right now everybody's in a pretty difficult position financially. I fully understand that. And I genuinely hate raising money. It's like the worst part of activism. I'm not good at it. I hate asking for money, but it is unfortunately a necessary evil. So if you have a couple extra bucks that you want to contribute to this event, we would sure appreciate it. Or to Randy's billboard truck. That's also a great cause that you can donate towards. And yeah, we try to be very careful with every penny and make sure that it gets put to good use.
Yeah, and what a great cause. And the way that I put it to people, and you talk to people a lot more about Assange than I do, but a lot of times when I bring it up, they kind of get a distant look. I don't know if they're kind of fearful. A lot of people are grossly ignorant, which is surprising, and I'm blaming it on the propaganda machine, I guess, as to why that is. But I explain it this way. Everybody's heard about the Doomsday Clock. The
Yeah.
Doomsday Clock is 90 seconds from the end. Game over for everybody. That's where we're at. Why in the hell would you lock up a guy like Julian Assange, a truth seeker, a truth teller, somebody that makes these revelations about the war machine, who has this sterling track record,
Yeah.
never lied, never made a mistake, never had to retract anything, and we lock the guy up and we won't let him out, and they want to bring him in on espionage charges? Where the hell are the journalists? And why aren't they running to this guy's defense? I always bitch about Bob Woodward in particular out of my childhood. One of the reasons I got into journalism back in the day actually was because of that guy. He had a whistleblower. I mean, that's how he made his claim to fame. That's how he got rich. That's how he's writing books today. And he sits there silent. But one guy that isn't, and this is, I'm going to see if this is Chris Hedges' new book. He's going to be at your event on October 8th. Everybody ought to go and listen and hear what Chris Hedges has to say. Now, I was listening to him last night, Misty, and maybe you've heard him say this before, but it was great. He said, this event on October 8th, and he was promoting it a little bit. He says, this is great. He says, it's kind of described as being in the belly of the beast in front of the DOJ, the Department of Justice. He says, it ain't. That's not the belly of the beast. The belly of the beast, according to Chris Hedges, is the CIA. He says the DOJ is just a proxy. It's just a tool, basically, of the CIA. But they ain't, it's all there together. But I mean, that's really what it's about. And this new book is really something else. It is so. If you read this, you'll go into a semi-state of shock, because Chris Hedges was a war correspondent. He saw it all. He saw the horrific parts of war, and then he's gone out and interviewed other people that talk about the greatest evil of war, and it makes saving Private Ryan seem like milk toast. I mean, the first 15 minutes of that movie, but again, the way that I explain it to people, and people say, "Oh God, I can't read that. I can't take that." You won't read that. You can't take that, but you'll send your neighbors' sons and daughters off to war to have this happen to them. You'll send your own sons and daughters. You'll promote and support these politicians, but you won't read a damn book. You can't take it. I mean, that's what it just infuriates me. Everybody read this book. It's great.
Yeah.
It's not very long. It's only 15 chapters. It's a great book.
Well, everybody should read anything Chris Hedges writes, in my opinion. I don't always agree with him, but I think he is one of our greatest voices, especially in terms of anti-war and in terms of standing up for the future of press freedom and free speech. I mean, he's been on the front lines of that. I mean, he's experienced that for himself numerous times. I mean, he was fired from the New York Times for speaking out against the Iraq war. So, I think he understands it better than most, and he is really good. He's such a good communicator that I think he's really able to reach people who might not otherwise get why this is so important.
Let me put this up on screen, because I prowl Misty's Twitter feed. I mean, it's just great. This is a friend or somebody that she retweeted, Coca Koala. It says, we must know all the facts. Okay, quote, because I was reading this. Okay, what is this? Quote, we must know all the facts and hear all the alternatives and listen to all the criticisms. Let us welcome controversial books and controversial authors. Folks, that's John F. Kennedy speaking in 1960. My God, and again, look at what we're doing to Julian Assange. But the point that I want you to talk about here, Misty, I talk about these people that don't seem to care about Assange. Okay, well, if you're a neoliberal, who's your icon? Who's your idol? It's got to be John Kennedy or his brother Bobby, for God's sake. He was talking about this in 1960, yet these people don't support freeing Assange. A lot of them don't, anyway. I'll never get over that, really.
Well, it's really a testament to the power of the smear campaign that's been launched against Julian Assange over the past decade plus. A lot of people they have no idea what's happening to him or how it affects their lives, which I think is really just speaks to the failure of the mainstream media, which is insane that they are not covering this story. But the people that do know what's going on, and those people that you're speaking about, the neoliberals, they have been fed so many lies and so many smears about. I mean, I say it all the time. They've attempted to kind of turn him into this kind of mysterious villain, like this comic book villain, right? Who, and it's been very effective, the way that they've done it. For example, during the 3 weeks of the trial in September of 2020, they put him behind a plexiglass wall, like he's Hannibal Lecter. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
that really just speaks. I mean, that's the optics of that. I think was really what that message was meant to send. And the smears that they've launched to him over the years, he's a traitor, which always makes me laugh because he's not American, or he's a hacker, or he put people's lives at risk, or he's a rapist, or he's a white supremacist, or he's, I mean, they've really launched all of the things at him over the past decade plus. And so, and especially the neoliberal crowd after post 2016, they see him as having damaged Queen Hillary.
Yeah.
And they were told that he was, some kind of tool of Russia who helped Trump get elected. And those people have internalized that and genuinely believe it, despite the fact that there is no evidence to support those claims. And despite the fact that throughout the entirety of the Russiagate saga, the Mueller report, all of that stuff, Julian Assange openly and regularly was willing to help with that investigation. Like said, hey, you can come, like, you want to come talk to me about this Russia stuff? Come talk to me. And it's interesting. Never once did they go and speak to Julian Assange after they labeled him as a Russian agent, somebody that helped Trump get elected. He was willing to participate in that investigation, and they did not even speak to him once.
Yeah.
So,
and talking about that 2016 Hillary campaign thing, of course, people in this part of the country, because we have the Iowa primaries here, are well aware of the screwing of Bernie. But the other part of it is, and this just came out in the news recently, this Pied Piper strategy that the Democratic Party has used since 2016 against Donald Trump. They're still using it. They're actually going out and using Democratic money to fund the most loony-toony right-wing Republican candidates that they can find.
What could possibly go wrong, George?
Honest to God, yeah. And because they did that with Donald Trump, and the proof is in the pudding. We got the dude. We got him. They're still doing it. They just did it in New Hampshire. The point that I'm trying to make is that was revealed. That truth was made visible by WikiLeaks.
Yes. Thank you, Julian.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I mean, there's so many things that WikiLeaks has exposed. The 2016 stuff is just a very small part of the things that have been exposed by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. But that's such an important aspect of it because, we were able to see, because I think everybody on some level recognizes that our elections are crap and that, everything is very rigged and it's a selection, not an election.
Yes.
I think most people know that on some level.
Yes.
But what WikiLeaks did was provide us with irrefutable evidence that even the primaries are completely bogus, and they are it's just a ridiculous system that we're in. And what's so frustrating to me about the 2016 releases, the Clinton and the DNC Podesta, all of that stuff, is that people focused so heavily on the butthurt emails thing, that nobody focused on the actual content of those emails, including anti-Semitism and racism and obvious corruption and rigging of a primary election. And it's very frustrating to me because there were so many things revealed in those emails that nobody talks about that needs to be discussed. But they're very good at obfuscating. They're very good at misdirection and kind of, hey, look over here at this shiny object, rather than really focusing on, the substance of the matter.
Yeah, and what are they really good at? And Misty talks about this all the time. It's under bio. It's the propaganda and you know what the thing is about propaganda? If it's really good, you don't know you're getting it.
Yeah.
And we've been getting it, for decades.
We're bombarded from birth.
I
mean, we are bombarded from birth with propaganda from nobody does it better than the United States of America. And people will argue with me about, oh, but North Korea, or, but Russia. No, they have nothing on what happens in this country on a daily basis.
Let me bring this up on screen, and we'll work through this here very quickly, because it goes right to the heart of this propaganda. It's just one example here, but this is a tweet that you had. You said, watching shitbag MSM, mainstream media, dump on Snowden. Now he's in the news again. He just got Russian citizenship after using the revelations obtained through his courage to make a crap ton of money, win awards, and establish careers is gross. Same thing they do to Assange. It needs to be called out loudly and often. They're vile. You're talking about the mainstream media. You're talking about the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, all these publications, the television networks as well, that used Julian's stuff and now they sit there with their thumbs up there, you know what, while he is facing extradition
Worse,
on
they're
espionage
not just
charges.
sitting with their thumbs up their asses. They are
Yeah.
actively and openly working against him. They run
Oh,
stories that are false.
yes.
The Guardian is a great example. They ran that story about Paul Manafort supposedly visiting
Yeah.
Julian Assange, Luke Harding, who is like an absolute just cretin of a human being, one of the worst propagandists on earth. And he ran this story about Paul Manafort supposedly visiting Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy. He
Yes,
went
all
so
fake.
far as to
Yeah.
invent a whole ass outfit for Paul Manafort to wear on one of these visits. And it's been thoroughly debunked. And the Guardian still, to this day, has that article up on their website. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. They aided and abetted in manufacturing consent for the treatment that Julian Assange is receiving right now.
Well, and it always goes back again, this type of coverage, to the question that I ask: Are they too dumb, or are they in on it? Comes from Robert De Niro out of the movie Casino. And let's take a look at this article here. See if I can get this to come up on screen. And there's your tweet. This is just on Edward Snowden here recently. Now the highlights are mine. I'm going to read through this, but I tell everybody. And Misty writes stuff. I have to, if you're a writer, every word has to be chosen. It has to be selected. There has to be a reason for it. So listen to this, folks. This is out of Moscow, the AP. Russia on Monday granted citizenship to former American intelligence contractor Edward Snowden, who fled prosecution after he revealed highly classified U.S. surveillance programs to capture communications and data from around the world. Okay, so one of the reasons I highlighted that is because we're getting falsehoods right off the top here. What he revealed, why he did this, Edward Snowden, didn't have anything to do with the world, because you look at it and you think, oh my God, this guy is trying to, bring down the entire planet. He did this because of what American intelligence agencies, the NSA, what they were doing to Americans, Misty.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And that's what's so disgusting about what they do, because you're right. You get immediate falsehoods right out of the gate in this article. They'll go on, as you have highlighted, they go on to, they're very good about the way that they word these things and the way that they kind of lay them out. It's not overtly, kind of smearing him, but it is, they're kind of alluding to these things, and how he's somehow this crazy traitor, or the biggest thing that is very frustrating to me is every time Edward Snowden pops into the media, everybody talks about how he fled to Russia.
Yes.
That's just not true.
Right.
That's just not true. That is a historical inaccuracy. He did not flee to Russia. He was trying to get to Latin America, to Ecuador. He left Hong Kong, went through Moscow, and when he was in Moscow, the United States canceled his paperwork.
Yanked his passport. He couldn't go anywhere.
He was stuck. He was literally stuck in an airport for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but yeah, he fled to Russia. He didn't flee to Russia. He got stuck in Russia and is now trying to make the best of it. Right. And yeah, it's just the mainstream media and the way that they do these things. It's so disgusting, and it's very frustrating, because so many of the people that I know who have lost their platforms for misinformation. When does mainstream media ever get held accountable for their misinformation? Never. They will never. For 5-6 years, they screeched about Russiagate, right? And it all turned out to be crap. Nobody's ever going to lose their platform for that. Chris Hayes isn't going to lose his platform for that. CNN isn't going to get taken off the internet for that. But that's what I mean by when I talk about how there's this major attempt at narrative control. They want to force feed you your reality, and that's exactly what they're trying to do in an article like this. They're trying to convince you of this isn't real life. Like they're feeding you, they're manufacturing a reality for you.
Well, and let me continue here. So this is something that jumped out at me again. Are they too dumb, or are they in on it? This speaks to the fact that they're in on it, because out of this very same Associated Press article, ties between Washington and Moscow are already at their lowest point in decades, following Putin's decision to launch what the Kremlin has dubbed. Now look at this, the way that this is written. Remember what I said, every word, every punctuation mark, everything is thought about. Special military operation in Ukraine. Now, what they're trying to imply there is that this is some kind of a bullshit thing that Russia has promulgated, and that they're trying to evade, that it's very condemning, that they're trying to evade the term war. by calling it a special military operation. My God, I'm a child of the 60s. I remember the Vietnam conflict. I remember the Korean War policing action.
Yeah,
Afghanistan was called, an international conflict. Iraq was a protracted conflict. We don't declare war in this country ever. We just go in and bomb the shit out of people and take what we need.
yeah.
And most recently, maybe, is in Syria. We're going to get to that very shortly. But we do it all the time. But look at what they're trying to do here to fan the flames, to accelerate warmongering with just quotation marks, Misty.
I know. And I also love it when they call it an unprovoked act of aggression or whatever, as
Yes.
if the last 8 years didn't happen, and that, you know what I mean, like there was no NATO expansion and there was no coup in 2014, and it was unprovoked, like Putin just woke up one day and decided that he was going to invade Ukraine for no reason. That's just not reality. And listen, I'm no fan of Putin. I get it. My name on Twitter is Comrade Misty Buddy. It's a joke, everybody.
It's a joke, folks. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm no fan of Putin. I don't like any world leaders. You cannot reach that level of power without being a psychopath. I'm not a fan of his. But I think that it is just completely devoid of reality if you fail to mention the entire history, the entirety of what happened in the lead up to what's going on right now. You can't. It's ridiculous to try to erase those 8 years and try to erase, things like the neo-Nazi problem and all of that. Everybody just pretends. Mainstream press wrote stories on that as early as like a couple years ago, like the AP, who you just had pulled up there, had stories talking about the Nazi problem. But now suddenly, no, you can't talk about that. There are no Nazis. How dare you?
Yeah.
What? That's just ridiculous. But that's what I mean. They're trying to manufacture a reality for themselves.
Manufacturing consent. Yeah, the great Noam Chomsky.
Yeah.
This slide I wanted to read particularly because this gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. And it's also what I talk about all the time with Assange. I want to see if you agree with this, because while Snowden 39 is considered by supporters to be a righteous whistleblower who wanted to protect American civil liberties, okay, that's like, it's questionable. Why else would he do this? Look what the man has suffered, what he went through. He didn't do this to write a book that I don't think probably made him a hell of a lot of money. I mean, why do you think that he did this? U.S. intelligence officials have accused him. Okay, here's my highlights of putting U.S. personnel at risk and damaging national security. All right, that's what they say about Assange all the time with his, the collateral murder video, and with the releasing of those documents having to do with the Iraq War. They say that he was putting intelligence assets, putting people at risk that harm. Okay, that stuff was, what, a decade ago or longer? Nobody's gotten a paper cut over this that I know of. I'm talking about the release of those.
No, and they've had to admit to that in court.
Yes.
The United States legal team has had to admit in court that they cannot find a single person who has been harmed because of the WikiLeaks releases.
And a lot of people have been helped, for God's sake, because of what it reveals. And again, could result in decades in prison. Snowden becomes a Russian citizen as Moscow is mobilizing reservists to go to Ukraine. Now, this is a bizarre article, and this was written and repeated in a lot of places. What they're getting at here, Misty, is whether or not Snowden is going to be enlisted, drafted into the Russian military because he's just gotten his Russian citizenship. What in the hell? I mean, this is like an angle on a story that a high school kid would come up with or something. Yes. It's bizarre, borderline bizarre anyway.
Yes, for sure.
39 years old.
Yeah, he's really, 39 years. He's not going to get conscripted into the military, y'all. And listen, I disagree with Russia's practice in that. I don't think that people should be forced to serve in the military, period. End of story.
At all,
that should never happen. But it's the reason why they're doing that is because it's a way that they can take a dig at Putin. And kind of create this, this sort of narrative around it that it's just, you're right. It is bizarre. It's just really ridiculous. And
they say here that he appears remotely at many events from Russia. Again, they put these words. Well, that's where the dude is. I mean, if
Yeah.
he's going to appear remotely, where is he appeared remotely at Iowa
If you
State
didn't want him
University,
to
right?
appear from Russia, you shouldn't have taken
Yeah,
away his
his
passport so
passport,
that he
exactly.
couldn't leave Russia. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, just saying. A U.S. damage assessment of his disclosures is still classified. That's what we were just talking about. A U.S. damage assessment of his disclosures. So this irreparable harm and danger that he posed to the world and our assets and our agents and our spooks and kooks and secret agents and all that stuff, well, it's still classified.
Yeah.
They ain't talking about that, folks, but they're not letting him come back from Russia. And then it goes on to quote Jim Clapper, for God's sake. I mean, this is unbelievable because he's directly linked to this story. This is why Snowden went and released this stuff, because of what Clapper and John Brennan and guys like that were lying about.
Yeah.
And then they come back and quote Clapper when it comes to Snowden and says a bunch of negative crap about him being out there in Russia. Yeah, again, you can't make this up. I don't think this is too dumb. I think they're in on it.
Of course somebody like James Clapper. Oh, fucking course he is.
Yeah.
Of course he is. And the media is really just, whether they know it or not. And I think that there are some who are genuinely, they are not aware of the role that they're playing. But I think that there are a lot of them who know exactly what they're doing. I mean, for example, Rachel Maddow, she's a Rhodes Scholar. She's not
smart.
an idiot.
Like a tack
She
boy.
knows,
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing. And I think that she's been able, and not just her, others like her, I think that they're able to make these weird justifications in their brain in order to make it okay with themselves so that they can sleep at night for what they're doing. But I think that there are some people who are genuinely just completely oblivious to the role that they're playing. But I think there are others who are absolutely aware and they know exactly what's going on. And they are either psychopaths or they've able to make some weird, sick justifications in order to make it okay.
Yeah, they are psychopaths. Okay, so again, before we get off this propaganda topic, I wanted to bring this up real quickly because this is an idol of mine, and I know Misty just loves her too. Caitlin Johnstone had this on her Twitter feed. Biden's cautious foreign policy is imperiling the United States. This is in the New York Times. I mean, this is opinion, but my God, President Biden gave an admirable speech, writes this writer, Corey Shacky, to the United Nations General Assembly Wednesday, condemning Russia's war, making clear that the United States will continue its support of Ukraine. We chose liberty. We chose sovereignty, he said rousingly. We stood with Ukraine. In the aftermath of Vladimir Putin's recent nuclear threat and call up reservists, it was reassuring, says this writer, for the leader of the free world to be unflinching. I saw that and it scared the shit out of me. I mean, honest to God, no, this person's reassured. Why? Because it might start a war that could decimate the planet.
Yeah.
Rhetoric aside, Corey writes, the administration has signaled in numerous other ways that Putin's threats have constrained support for Ukraine. What? Biden's foreign policy team speaks of putting up guardrails on the conflict and congratulates themselves on their slow increase in assistance, not provoking Mr. Putin.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Caitlin brings this up to again point out that we are being propagandized. This is in the world's most influential newspaper, and this is what the people that run this country and run the planet are reading on a daily basis. This is propaganda. It is warmongering.
It's bullshit. Like none of that is reality. We chose sovereignty. Since when? Where's the sovereignty of Syria? Where's the sovereignty of Yemen? Where's the sovereignty of Somalia? Where's the sovereignty of Venezuela or Iraq or Afghanistan or any of the other places that we're decimating on a daily basis? I mean, I talk about this all the time. Everybody wants to finger wag at Vladimir Putin. And listen, again, not a fan. He's done some really terrible things. But the idea that the United States thinks that they have any moral authority to finger wag at literally anybody is fascinating to me. You can take the entirety of what Putin has done in Ukraine so far since February. All horrible, horrendous stuff. I'm not excusing any of it. But that's a Tuesday for the United States.
Yes.
We do that daily.
On the regular.
On the regular. We're doing that right now today in Syria. We are occupying their country. We are stealing their oil. We are decimating their people. Really? You're going to think you have I can't take you seriously. Really? You think you have any credibility whatsoever in terms of human rights abuses? Or it's ridiculous. It's absurd. And the hypocrisy and the American exceptionalism that it takes to say that with a straight face is mind blowing.
And the media is in on it now.
Yes.
Misty and I can do this all day long, but this is something now. It's completely unrelated, but this is a very good example. Again, from the Associated Press. And Misty, when I was in the news bureau, when I was doing it back in the day, I mean, we relied on the Associated Press. It was the worldview, UPI and AP. I mean, that's where you got it all
Yep.
back then. And so you could make an argument that the shit that we're in today, it's all because of those guys. They formed it, folks. U.S. foreign vessel seen near Alaska. What? A U.S. Coast Guard ship on routine patrol in the Bering Sea came across a guided missile cruiser from China, officials said Monday. Oh my God. But it turned out that the cruiser wasn't alone as it sailed about 86 miles north of Alaska's Kiska Island on September 19th. Now, you got to remember, folks, we got 800 military bases, the United States does, surrounding the planet. Yeah, it probably 1,000.
The ones we know about. It's over 1,000. And that's not including black sites.
Including China. I mean, and so, okay, read on to this. Now, so I'm reading this. I'm thinking, holy buckets. 2 other Chinese naval ships and 4 Russian naval vessels, including a destroyer, were spotted in single formation. The patrol boat, known as a cutter called Kimball, discovered. So we've got a U.S. patrol boat, the Kimball. We got the Chinese. We got a trifecta here, folks. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can launch a war. Now they're spotted in single formation. That's for ships. That's a line. That's a single formation. That's what they do. They're out there playing around. I mean, it's grown men, admirals, and stuff like that with their toys in the ocean, and they're literally. Probably not an official war game, but they're just playing around.
Yeah.
The Honolulu-based Kimball, a 418-foot vessel, observed as the ships broke formation. So they got out of their single line. They went anywhere. I mean, unless they went in a single line off the end of a flat planet, they had to break formation at some point in time. A C-130 Hercules provided air support for the Kimball from the Coast Guard station in Kodiak. Now, here's my highlights. While the formation has operated in accordance with international rules and norms, we will meet presence with presence to ensure there are no disruptions to U.S. interests in the maritime environment around Alaska. Okay, you got to read into it that far to get to it. What this is saying is this is nothing. Yet, if you look at that headline, if you read the first couple of paragraphs in this article, you're thinking China, Russia, the United States, the military, the Navy. My God, let's war a go-go. That's how this stuff leads to disaster, Misty.
Yeah. Yes. And this is how they manufacture consent for this stuff, because here's the thing. Fear is a very powerful manipulator. And so when that headline says, Chinese military or whatever it said, located near Alaska, then that creates fear in the people of the United States, because, oh my gosh, they're coming to attack us. Obviously, they're coming to attack us. And so most people, and you know how it is, it's unfortunate, but most people don't read past the headline. And when you have to get 3, 4, 5 paragraphs in to get the reality of the story, which is that this is a nothing burger and that they didn't break any rules, they were just out in the ocean doing their thing. People, that is exactly how this works. And like I said, there's nobody better at this game than the United States of America. The press is owned and operated by the exact same people that own and operate our government. They all work in coordination to put out these narratives so that they can further their agenda. That's how this works. I know that sounds like, oh, come on, really? Yes. That we saw WikiLeaks revealed. If you just look at the 2016 primary campaign, they revealed that there were dozens of news reporters who were collaborating with the Hillary Clinton campaign, which is not okay. That's not allowed. But they were directly collaborating.
Feeding questions.
Yes, feeding questions. Glenn Thrush from I want to say the Washington Times, maybe the Washington Post. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. But he literally sent an article to her campaign for approval before he published it. Do you have any changes? He even said in the email, "I realize this makes me a hack, but here's this article. You want to check it out and let me know if there needs to be any changes." I mean, that's the reality of the situation in this country. Our media is completely owned and operated. It is completely corrupt. It works they just uncritically publish what they're told to publish. There is no actual reporting. There is no investigative work. They are just given their notes from the CIA or the Department of Justice or whatever it is, and they just print it uncritically. And that passes for journalism in this country.
I'm going to bring this up. Well, I'm going to go through this real quickly, and I'm picking on AP a lot, but you can do this all day. Meta disables Russian propaganda network targeting Europe. Okay, I read this. Oh, man, this sounds bad. A sprawling disinformation. Think about every word, folks. A sprawling disinformation network originating in Russia sought to use hundreds of fake social media accounts and dozens of sham news websites to spread Kremlin talking points about the invasion of Ukraine, Meta revealed Tuesday. The company, which owns Facebook and Instagram, said it identified and disabled the operation before it was able to gain a large audience. So think back to that ships at sea story that we just had. Oh, what the hell? How does this make the news? How does this get on Associated Press? This is this nothing burger that Misty's talking about. Nonetheless, Facebook said it was the largest and most complex Russian propaganda effort that it has found since the invasion began. What's that tell you? That tells you that this is nothing, and that it's the biggest nothing that they've been able to locate so far. Researchers said they couldn't directly attribute the network to the Russian government. Yeah, and this is always the thing. Maybe there are some people so disposed in Russia that are doing this, but it has nothing to do with Putin or the Russian government. But this fans the flames, folks. Agranovich noted the role played by Russian diplomats and said the operation relied on some sophisticated tactics, including the use of multiple languages and carefully constructed imposter websites. Well, we've seen some of this crap. Most of it's a joke if you ever look at it. Since the war began in February, the Kremlin has used online disinformation and conspiracy theories in an effort to weaken international support for Ukraine. This is amazing to me, this entire genre of communications that we've seen, because what is Russia doing? They're blowing the shit out of Ukraine. They're blowing people up. They're killing people unmercifully. But we're concerned about them using Facebook memes and stuff to spread disinformation. It's a war, folks. It's a bloody, horrible, ugly, sickening war. And this is how we frame it. We put it in this context. Groups linked to the Russian government have accused Ukraine of staging attacks, blamed the war on baseless allegations of U.S. bioweapon development, and portrayed Ukrainian refugees as criminals and rapists. All true. Even though Russia is fully involved in Ukraine in the military conflict, they're able to do more than one thing at a time, said Brian Murphy, a former Department of Homeland Security intelligence chief, who is now a vice president at the counterinformation firm Logically. They have never stopped their sophisticated disinformation efforts. Social media platforms and European governments have tried to stifle the Kremlin's propaganda and disinformation, only to see Russia shift tactics. Now, the reason I highlighted this, Misty, is because and I know you pay attention to this. At the beginning, they said that this didn't have anything to do with the Kremlin. It didn't have anything to do with the Russian government. But when they end like this, see my highlights, it makes you think that the Kremlin and Putin and the Russian government is behind this stuff when they clearly are not. So again, are they too dumb, or I think they're in on it?
Of course they are. And I'm just curious, when does the disinformation campaign that is coming through the United States government, when does that get taken down by Meta?
Yeah.
I'm curious, because that is absolutely a thing that exists. We know they have been found out. They've been called out. They've been proven to be liars over and over. I mean, the Iraq War, Russiagate. I mean, seriously, how many times? How many times do they get to do it? But there's never any accountability for this side. They label George Galloway Russia state affiliated media, but they don't say that Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes or Tucker Carlson are U.S. state propaganda, because that's exactly what mainstream press is. And it's so blatantly obvious that this is a one-sided thing, and that it's part of it. Like this whole we're going to censor Russian trolls or whatever. How about correct the record in the 2016 primary and David Brock's bot farm? We know that existed. We know that there was a literal bot farm of people running around trying to correct the record about Hillary Clinton. But nobody ever lost their platform for that. Nobody ever got taken down for that. And that's what I'm saying, is that it's a very obviously one-sided situation, and it's just using censorship as a weapon. We just had Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand the other day liken free speech to a weapon of war. I mean, this is no joke. They are coming for your speech. They're coming to shut down any and all dissent.
Sure.
And that's just reality. That's what's happening right now.
My God. And the mainstream media is largely responsible for that. That's what I've been reading
Yes.
from. But if the Russian government was doing this type of thing, which the article says that they're not, but if they were, we do it all the time. That's what
Yeah.
Misty's talking about. Have you ever heard of Radio Free Europe? Have you ever heard of Voice of America?
Yeah.
When I was on WHO back in the day, they were using a thing called Radio Marti and using the frequency the WHO was on to overpower Cuba with propaganda. That's what that stuff is. And that was before the internet. So we're crawling all over the internet doing the same thing.
Of course
Same
we
dirty.
are.
Yes.
Every country is
exactly.
literally every country is trying to
if they can get on the internet, they are.
Yes, every single one of them is trying to use disinformation and information as a weapon against their own people, against the people of other countries. Of course. Duh. Like, yes, of course they are. That's what I'm saying. Like, the leaders of all countries are psychopaths, and they're all going to use every tool to their advantage that they can in order to further their own agenda. That's what we're dealing with. And yeah, it's absurd that anybody thinks that, Russia's doing this, but the United States is obviously not. I mean, are you joking? Of course we are. We're doing it. I mean, Putin ain't got shit on us, George. There's no way that he could ever hope to achieve the things that we are able to achieve in this country. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the funding. He doesn't have the infrastructure. Like, he is at an extreme disadvantage as far as that goes. And the United States is by far the worst offender. That's what I'm talking about. The hypocrisy of Americans and governmental officials in the United States finger wagging Vladimir Putin over something that we do at, just an unbelievably exaggerated degree compared to Putin is just stupid. It's mind blowing.
It is stupid. And you think about, just put yourself in the shoes of these other people around. And when you look at the United States of America, you look at George Bush, the first one, the disaster and the war, and people, you don't think the people around the world don't look at him and say, that guy was the head of the CIA.
Yes.
That's your president. This McBoob, that's the spokesperson for our State Department, Ned, I can't think of what his name is. Yeah, CIA.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you can criticize all of these other nations looking around the world, but how would you like to have them look at us and say, the head of your spokesperson, he's from the CIA. Yeah, look at exactly.
They don't even hide it anymore. They just have these people on as paid contributors. Yeah. And then at the bottom, they have their little name and it says former head of the CIA or former CIA, blah, 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 or whatever. Like, they just put these people out as if they're, honest actors. They're clearly not. And it's that's our information source. That's our news media. I mean, we are in trouble. We're in real trouble.
Okay, but let me, Misty's seen this a million times and I've played it a lot, but man, you can't have it on enough. Let's play this. Just take 30 seconds. We'll catch our breath and come right back.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like, we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
Oh my God! The way that ends, the glory of the American.
Most dangerous men on the planet, in my opinion. He is unbelievable, and he's going to run for president. I need everybody to go ahead and get ready for that. He is running for president in 2024. He's lost weight. He's been talking to donors.
He's been to Iowa. He's testing the water. Yeah,
he's absolutely testing. He's good. And I need to remind everybody that Mike Pompeo plotted to murder a journalist.
Yes.
Mike Pompeo, through UC Global, plotted to murder a journalist for telling the truth.
Julian
for exposing
Assange.
Vault 7.
And that ain't just Misty saying that, folks. That was Yahoo
reality.
News. That was Michael Isikoff. I mean, that is on the record.
There's a court case in Spain right now.
Yeah.
He has been called to testify in Spain in that court case. He's avoiding it, but he has been called to testify in the High Court of Spain to discuss the plots that were happening at the highest levels of the Trump administration to either kidnap or assassinate Julian Assange, including conversations about shootouts in the streets of London to murder a journalist. That's who Mike Pompeo is. He's a psychopath.
Yeah, and he's telling you right up front, don't believe me, I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I'm a stealer, and people will run to vote for. Okay, so, Misty, that guy, that pant load or the death walrus, as you call it, which is worse, do you think?
I mean, I don't know that there's a worse there. You know what I mean?
We're talking
I
about
don't.
John Bolton. Yeah,
Yeah, the Death Walrus. Yeah, he is
I
the
heard
Death
Misty
Walrus.
say that. I
Yeah.
still tell people that the Death
And
Walrus.
my friend calls Mike Pompeo a gigantic blob of satanic jello. So there's that.
Yeah, there is it.
They're all crazy people. They are all.
They are.
I mean, I'm not being like overly dramatic or hyperbolic here. They are psychopaths.
Yeah.
That is who power attracts those types of people. Power rewards those types of people. If you look at our system that we live in, that's who always rises to the top. Yeah, he is going to run for president. He is an unbelievably dangerous human being. And we talked about earlier the stuff that Snowden released and the things that showed that they are capable of. Well, WikiLeaks released Vault 7, which is why Mike Pompeo wanted Julian Assange dead so desperately, because it was the largest CIA leak in history. And that exposed that they are able to spy on you through your smartphone and your smart TV. They're able to manipulate your vehicle. They can, and also something I found interesting, it revealed that they have the ability to hack into computer systems and then leave footprints that make it look like it was somebody else. Like maybe Russia.
Yeah, maybe. Do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's happening, folks. It's all around us. We're running out of time. I want to bring this up. Let me bring me back here. This is another great Misty Winston, or Comrade Misty, Putin's buddy, on Twitter. This is an article out of the Cradle. And it says a new convoy of looted oil smuggled out of Syria by the U.S. Army. Now, this is really important because this thing with winter coming on Europe and the restriction of the fuel coming out of Russia, this is going to be a major issue. Well, what are we doing? We're stealing it right now. How do we know? We had a president of the United States admit to it. Captain Butt Crunch, Donald Trump, on, in a news conference said, I stole the oil. And
that was the best thing about him.
Yeah.
He was a hot mess of a disaster, but he had no gift for subtlety. And he said the quiet part out loud a lot. And really ripped the mask off of American imperialism.
That's why the Republicans hate him. That's why they don't want him back. That's exactly right. I mean, he is bad for the brand, boy. I mean, really bad for the.
And not because he doesn't do what he's told, because he did. He did all the things that he was told to do. He is not.
Look at the tax break.
Yeah, he's not. Trump supporters, I need you to hear me. He is not a threat to the establishment. He is the establishment. The only reason they don't like him is that he is a loudmouth and he's hard to control in terms of what he says out loud. He is, frankly, he's dumb. And he is,
he doesn't read
incapable.
or write. I mean,
No.
You can't overstate that. A president, 45th president of the United States, he's trying to run again. That's not again, hyperbole.
No.
The man does not read or write. He watches television, listens
and drinks
to
Diet Coke and listens to Tucker Carlson, and that's the extent. But seriously, I don't know if anything could prove more that our system is completely broken if your elections for the president of the United States comes down to Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, really? That's what we're accepting? That's the best? That's the two best people we can find in this country? We have, 350 million people here? And that's what we ended up with? That's ridiculous. Come on.
And again, he wasn't, that was not the voters' choice. That's not who we wanted. We went through the Iowa caucuses and through he was selected, as you said earlier. Yep. That's what that was all about. He was the biggest friend of Wall Street and the military-industrial complex. And that's how we got that guy. He's their guy. He was never anybody's guy, including even neoliberal mainstream Democrats. Let me bring this up on screen here from Mary Knox, because she's a friend of, you'd love Mary Knox, Misty. I mean, she's an admin of Facebook pages all over the heartland, and
God bless you.
Yeah,
Facebook's
she says
terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, she does the best that she can, and she's good at it. She says, has the CIA ever done a darn positive thing for Americans?
No.
Anything at all?
No.
That was a net positive for our country. I feel like the TV show Scandal was not so fictitious. That's exactly right. Of course, they're going to say, well, if we did, we couldn't tell you. No, you can't. The secret stuff you can get away with. But if you did something good, tell us what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, crickets.
Well, I mean, they talk about how Snowden and Julian Assange damaged national security and made us unsafe. You know who makes us unsafe? The CIA. Yeah. That's who makes us unsafe.
Yeah.
The CIA needs to be abolished. It was a horrible idea from jump, and they are far too powerful at this point. Yeah, it needs to go away. It needs
Okay.
to, it's that is, you said it earlier, it's not really the Department of Justice, it's the CIA. That's really, if you want to know who runs the country, I mean, really, it's
That is the belly of the beast. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And in the media too, Anderson Cooper. I always think of Anderson.
Mhm.
He's former CIA. That's where the guy.
There's
That's
a
where
lot
he,
of them who
That's where
are.
he made his bones. He's a Vanderbilt that was in the CIA. People don't know that. They tune in
Yeah.
CNN. Okay, we're out of time. I'm gonna bring this up real quickly here. I just maybe have you talk about it. We talked about these, Caitlin Johnstone and Chris Hedges, John Pilger. Talk about him a little bit, Misty.
Yeah, John Pilger is one of my journalistic heroes. He is a real one. I mean, he's done incredible work over the years. I highly recommend everybody take a look at all of the stuff that he's done for decades. He is really one of the best journalists that we've ever seen. This is an article that was 8 years old. And it's so funny because, despite the fact that I'm on camera numerous times talking about my dislike for Vladimir Putin, people like to label me as a Russia lover or a Putin puppet or a whatever, simply because I bring up the relevant history of what's happening in Ukraine right now. And it's not like I'm just like making that up. It's reality. John Pilger talked about it 8 years ago. It is just the way that things are. And anybody ignoring that history is doing themselves and everyone a disservice, because we have to deal in reality. We cannot go anywhere good unless we deal with the truth and the reality of where we are now. And so people who are denying that history are doing a huge disservice and really just perpetuating, the American war game. And that's, John Pilger got it right 8 years ago. It's really not that complicated. And it's very frustrating that people are unable to see that.
And it's in writing. You can look it up. You can read it. And here's my point: why isn't that guy all over mainstream media? Why isn't he on your television set every night? He was right. Instead, we're seeing all of these people that were wrong, either because they were too dumb or they were in on it, and they continue to be wrong. And people like John Pilger, who should be uplifted because they had it right, are not. And another guy that had it right is sitting in Belmarsh. Okay, so we're out of time. Got to bring up another hero here very quickly. I want to bring this up. Oh, man, I really like this. Yeah. And this is Claire Daly. And I've got go ahead and talk about Claire. I'll bring this clip up.
Yeah, Claire's amazing. She's an Irish MP. Her and Mick Wallace are phenomenal human beings. I wish more politicians were like them. Mick, I'm sorry. I wish more politicians were like them. And we've been trying to send out emails to people who obviously can't come to our event in DC, but we would like them to participate. So we were going to have people make short videos that we could do a social media campaign with. So I went to her website to see if I could find an email address where I could send the invitation to her. And I pulled up the homepage, and this is the picture where they're wearing Free Assange shirts, and they're talking about migrants who have died. And yes, they're just amazing. I would trade the entirety of Congress for one Claire Daly.
I would too. I would, make her president, make her queen. Okay, let me. And here, now that was Assange that we were talking about. Let's watch this, folks. This is Claire Daly talking about Ukraine. We need some of this. Give me some of this, please.
Onorevole Daly, ha facoltà di replicare.
Thanks, colleague. I would love colleague Jambaski to tell me any circumstance in which NATO has played a productive role or delivered peace anywhere. History has taught us that sanctions do not end military conflicts. They do not bring peace. They make the people suffer, not the oligarchs, the people of Russia, the people of Europe. And they're not going to help save lives, because the more arms you pump into Ukraine, the more the war will be prolonged, the more Ukrainians will die. And it might sound radical, colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organisation should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm afraid, Mrs. Daly, we've given you the opportunity to reply. So let us try and stay calm.
Let us try and stay calm.
Yeah,
as
and
we
and that
kill
guy
innocent people and
that guy
Nazis.
runs. Yeah, that's a very
Yeah.
good point. I mean, this stuff is all done in such a cold-blooded manner. Yeah,
Yes.
she's excited. We're talking about people getting blown apart, generations being ruined, lives being destroyed, by the thousands, tens of thousands, maybe the damn planet. Yeah, Claire Daly, get up and do that. Where's the rest of them? Where's everybody else? Well, that guy's walking out the door. Yeah, honest to God, remember what we said about the CIA never helping anybody? Yeah, well, NATO, she's pointing out, they never helped anybody
No.
either. They just blew people up.
Also needs to
mostly.
be abolished. Yeah.
Yeah.
And seriously, where's the squad? Where's Bernie Sanders?
Yeah,
Why are they not? They're
that's
supposed
what
to
we
be
want 'em for.
anti-war, right? They're supposed to be, and they don't have anything to say about what's happening right now. They don't have anything to say. We just again sent another like $13 billion and more weapons to Ukraine, knowing we have no idea where those weapons are going. And it's not like we haven't done this before. We've sent weapons to other people, and they end up in the hands of really terrible people, and bad things happen to innocent civilians. And it's very frustrating to me that there are like just a handful of people in the world who are brave enough to speak out against what's happening here. It's disgusting.
Well, I got one more slide. Here we go. Talk us through this now. Give us the elevator pitch again, Misty, and don't forget to mention how people can help with their money if they can't be there in person. Yeah.
Well, most importantly, we would love for you to come out. That's the biggest thing. We need people in the streets. The only way we ever get change, regardless of what it's for, is with mass public pressure. So if you are in the DC area or you can get to the DC area, the event is taking place on Saturday, October 8th from 12 to 3 outside the Department of Justice. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we have an unbelievable list of speakers. It is, just an embarrassment of riches in terms of our speaker list. So I'm very excited. I'm a little worried that we are not going to have time for everybody, but we're going to make time because those are really amazing people. And I'm so excited that we're going to be able to hear them speak. We're also going to be live streaming it. So if you can't make it, don't worry, you won't miss out. We're going to have lots of people live streaming the event, so you'll be able to check out all of that stuff. We're also going to be doing post-speech interviews with everybody, so there will be even more content and more thoughts from the people who we have speaking at the event. So again, if you can make it out, it's Saturday, October 8th from 12 to 3 at the Department of Justice. If you can't make it to DC, again, it's a global event. There's events happening all over the place. You can go to Candles for Assange, the number 4. My friend Alex Hills does an amazing job of collecting all of the global events, tweeting them out from one spot. It's a one-stop shop. You can go and find an event near you. If you can't be or find an event near you, you can be an event near you. And we will help you if you need help getting set up or started or whatever you need. We will try our best to help you. As George mentioned, you can also contribute to the GoFundMe. It's not cheap to pull this stuff off, unfortunately. So if you have a couple extra bucks that you wouldn't mind throwing our way, we would love that and appreciate it. You can also donate to Randy's billboard truck campaign at AssangeCountdownToFreedom.com. Again, the Denver event, you mentioned that earlier. My dear friend Kendra is doing an amazing job organizing, and she's been organizing there and holding events there for a very long time. And Kyle Anzalone is one of their featured speakers, so that's a great one that you should check out. But again, events happening all over the place, so find one, get out there, get loud. We need everybody's help. Don't care what party you belong to. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what film you subscribe to. I don't care what books you read. If you care about the future of press freedom and free speech, then you're welcome to come and join us.
And I do, and she does too. Misty Winston, thanks again
for
coming on Podcast by George. It's been a great lifeline. It's been a lot of fun, folks. I mean, I really enjoyed this. Misty, we'll circle back. We'll get with you again. We'll do a post-mortem, we used to call it in the business, but that's kind of a morbid. But we'll talk about after the show. So all the best.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's great, folks. And I want to just close here by telling, if you like seeing Misty Winston on Podcast by George, I mean, go check her out on Twitter and all the various places she appears. But if you like, our byplay, the way that we get along, the things that we talk about, go to podcastbygeorge.com and pick a platform where you want to follow this. So you can get it on Facebook. You can click the little icon there and you'll go to Facebook and be able to follow YouTube. Click that. You'll get the videos there. Subscribe, ring the notification bell. Leave us a comment. That'd be great on YouTube. And of course, all of the audio platforms. Now, this was over an hour long. So if you just want to hear these things while you're commuting or riding your bike or working out or whatever the case might be, all of the audio platforms are there. Spotify and Stitcher and iTunes, all those places. But that is going to do it again. Thanks so much, folks. Thanks for stopping by the Podcast by George LiveLine. That's all there is. And there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.